It is Monday, April 28th. I am Geoff Schwartz. That is Matt Ford. This is Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You. We're doing this on a Monday rather than a Friday because we had a big NFL weekend. We had the NFL draft Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 7 rounds. I lose track of the picks. I think 261 picks, somewhere around there. This is pick 241 from 2008, reporting to you, Matt. 17 years
Nice.
ago, I was drafted. I turned to my wife and I said, I've known you for 17 years. I met her right after I was drafted in Charlotte. So we will recap what happened this weekend in the draft. I'm not going through all the picks, but we will talk about Shedeur Sanders. We'll probably ask Matt about his Commanders. We'll talk about maybe some picks we liked in the first round. Matt, one year I was working on NFL radio and Sirius like a week after the draft. And this is when I was probably a little more heavy in just studying 100 of the players, right? Like right now, I do so many things that I study the top 40 players essentially, right? Like I just don't have time to do all the players anymore.
Sure.
And I know most of the offensive linemen, of course, but I was in NFL radio. We were talking about like the Lions or something, and we're talking about like the Lions wide receivers and Stafford. This when he's on the Lions, and a caller called in to me and said, "Hey, what do you think of this guy Matt Ford we drafted?" And I said, "Man, all wide receivers play well with Stafford. It's just like they'll find a spot for him. No idea who he was." And he goes, "No, he's actually a cornerback the Lions drafted." I was like, "What do you want? What do you want from me? What what
Yeah.
what, what am I going to tell you?" He said, "Seventh round corner Lions drafted." He called in and asked me about him. So my point being, Matt, we'll talk about the top of the draft. That's what we're going to do because that's what we're focused on. And if you want team specific stuff, don't leave my podcast. Well, there's plenty to be found. Whether you get granular on teams. Buddy, how was your weekend? How was your NFL draft?
Wow, I feel like you just really like revealed some like old trauma there. And,
Oh,
I
it was,
appreciate you
yeah,
for doing that. Like this
yeah.
is a safe place. I'm glad you feel that
It
you
pissed
trust
me
me
off
with that
still.
information. That's
Yeah,
really, I get that.
yeah,
Yeah, I had a great time watching the draft. But I wanted to start this
yeah.
podcast with a question, Jeff, which was there's a real debate happening online right now about how many men would be needed to stop one gorilla. My question is, would you load up the team that would go against the gorilla with offensive linemen, defensive linemen? Like fill out maybe the football GM
Yeah.
perspective here. If we were to sort of gang up against a gorilla, there's
Well,
two slots for us. We need
yeah,
98 more guys. Fill it
yeah.
out.
Well, my dog wants to be involved very clearly. I
Okay.
would
Ineligible.
ineligible. I would probably say you need more defensive linemen than offensive linemen because they're a little nutso, you know. But you probably need some offensive linemen to help with the planning and the attack
Uh-huh.
and like how to actually go about this.
Yeah.
Um, this is a great debate. It's very funny. Um, I think I mean 100 NFL offensive linemen could probably subdue the gorilla enough, but I don't know, man. I mean, like we're gonna lose a couple. We're gonna lose a couple, Matt, to the gorilla. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna
It's
be
not going to be
bad.
a clean sheet.
No,
100%. It will
no,
not.
no. But I just love these debates because the answer is the gorilla would kill all 100 regular men.
I think so too. I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
I think you could maybe throw in, I mean, if you were to fill out the NFL team of the 100, I think your Andrew Luck, your Peyton Manning, your consensus number one pick has to be Dan Campbell. He's going to lead you, and he might lay down himself and be just in the mix. He's got the size, he's got
Yeah.
the leadership, he's got a sort of a tactical, reckless even strategy. So I would say you start with him, and then yeah, I do feel like the edge rushers might be, or maybe the
Yeah.
big boys like that kid from Florida, the
The-
tush
the-
push weapon, Desmond,
yeah.
whatever. Like get him in
Yeah,
there.
well, so you have to sacrifice him early. Like let the gorilla sort of beat. For those who missed it, Tampa Bay drafted Tez Johnson, the smallest player in the draft, to weight 154 pounds.
Wow.
Then they signed the defensive tackle from Florida, who's 420 pounds. So the biggest difference ever in a draft season were those guys, which is incredible. I love these debates because the answer is always the animal's going to win, and I
Yeah.
just love how humans and mostly men think that we're going to defeat animals in sort of Thunderdome situations.
Yeah.
And
Not happening.
it's even, I mean, we can't even defeat a rattlesnake. The thing bites you, you're dead. We're
Yeah.
gonna go after a gorilla. And so yeah, it would. Okay, I'd pay to watch it. I mean, I'd be down. Here's what would happen. the gorilla, if it 100 NFL offensive linemen, it would get too tired. Like that would be, and we would succumb. We would. That's the issue. It would just be tired. But 100 regular men, 100 Hank Grobergs,
Gorilla
probably
all day.
gorilla. So I love these discussions so much. I could have them all day because it's great, like summer radio. I always refer to that, just these debates. Um, and so what a way to start. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think we netted out on we don't love our chances. Dan Campbell's involved, and then more defensive players. Um, okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess we can talk about the NFL draft that
Yeah.
happens that got more viewers than Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Maybe people are
I
somewhat interested in that.
quickly on the ratings thing, dude. I used to care a little bit more about that stuff. NFL's king. NFL has become such a king that I don't care anymore. But what I find so interesting about that about this, and we're trying to bash the NBA, Matt, is every year, like December 30th, there's a graphic on social media that lists the 100 most watched events of the season. Okay. And 75 are football, 24 are basketball, and like a presidential debate.
Right. The
That's the 100.
Oscars.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that, right? So even if the NBA is not the NFL, it's still like 25% of the top 100 watch days of the year or events of the year. It's why they get a $7 billion TV deal. It's if you want as an advertiser to have your product seen on television, there's two options for the most part. Three, I
Yeah.
guess: NFL, college football, which is a different type of audience, and the NBA, which is a different type of audience than I would say college football or even some of the NFL. So like the ratings thing is stupid. Like I know why we do it, but it doesn't mean anything. It's a fun number to throw out there. It's not the NBA struggling for. They just signed a $7 billion TV deal.
I think it's people who maybe have a problem with some things about the NBA that maybe you or I don't have problems with.
Well, fair enough. Which might lead
Yeah,
us to
but
our next topic. But yes.
what's our what's our next topic?
Well, saying Sanders dropping. There were
Sanders
the
dropping.
same people
Yes.
that do NBA ratings are cheering for Sanders dropping.
Right. So, right, there's definitely that, which that conversation has come up. But so I guess obviously if you're watching this or listening, you know what happened with Shedeur Sanders. He ends up going in the fifth round. Mel Kiper went apoplectic on the air. Geoff, I'm sure you have thoughts on this. Were
Yeah.
you surprised at how the day went, or the weekend rather went for Shedeur?
Okay. I'm going to start with the Kuiper thing because it's going to tie into sort of what my whole picture on Sanders. Okay. So here's where I think we sort of not we and I'm in the media went wrong on this, Matt. Okay. So I covered Colorado with the Pac-12 radio for the first year Dion was there. Okay. And cover them heavily every day. Like the idea that you can be a hater of Dion because you talk negatively about him is ridiculous. Dion's great for business, buddy. Like fantastic. Dion is awesome for business. Talk to Colorado every day on the radio from the day he was signed as head coach till the day that station died after the Pac-12 broke up. Every day we talked about Dion in Colorado. Great for business. Um, so, but it's good for business, but also there was a point where I just stopped mentioning Colorado on social media because the backlash of that decision, if I said anything negative to decide to talk about it on social media, was not worth getting blown up on social media format, right? So with that idea about like the rabidness of the Colorado backers, essentially the Dion and Shedeur fans, okay, so the forward facing TV people that do mock drafts and do the draft for a living, they were much higher on Shedeur Sanders than sort of like the film people that we turn to. So like for example, like I'll use their name like Nate Tice, who I like, I think you like as well. He had Shedeur ranked 40th on his big board. You talk to like Todd McShay, who's now back at the Ringer, I believe it is. He had him about 25 to 30. You look at like Dane Brugler, who works for the Athletic. Sorry, I kicked my computer there. I think he had him somewhere about the 20th. I think was about where he netted out on Shedeur Sanders. Um, and then the TV people were like 5, 6, 4, 7. And I think a lot of it had to do with just not wanting to get the backlash for going on national television and saying he's my 27th best prospect. And dude, even in the week of the draft, Dan Orlovsky put out a video for ESPN just saying something like, Here are some things. Here are some things. Dion, not Dion. Here are some things Shedeur Sanders has to work on. And Dion quote tweeted saying Dan was a hater. What, like Matt? Why do you want that in your life? Like, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? So like, okay, so that's where I think the evaluation was so wrong on Sanders was that we had a lot of people that were loud on the TV side saying he is this type of player. And look, certainly I had him second in my mock draft for a while. Like we're all part of the problem here, I think. And you listen to the other people that were sort of like, you know what? I don't know. Like the people that weren't worried about their opinion basically ever getting to the people that get angry at them. Does that make sense, Matt? And so I think that the people that were right were the Nate Tices that had him about 40, the McShays, the Dane Bruglers. Again, like those guys that just sort of were, I think, more honest about their opinion. Like Mel Kiper saying he's the fifth best player in this draft is so high. I mean, even I think the if you just strip out all the other stuff, we'll talk about the other stuff, Matt, and just look at the on the field production from Sanders. He's not the fifth best prospect in this draft. He's not the fifth. Cam Ward is not the fifth best prospect in this draft. If you're grading the players one, through 100. So, like, I just think it's ludicrous how far in that direction it went. Okay. So, Mel Kiper is so offended by this. And again, it's an unwillingness to move off your opinion when new information comes out. And actually give credit to other people on the panel, and they're mostly former players that said, like, hey, Mel, dude, this is the NFL. The NFL will tell you what your worth is, and the NFL will do that. I didn't want to be drafted in the seventh round. I thought it was better than that too. But the NFL told me, Jeff Schwartz, you're a seventh round pick, and there's many reasons for that. But that's what happened. And the NFL's telling Shedeur, you're a fifth round pick, and it's not because of talent. It's because I think once the talent is, I think we agree is again like end of first round, top of second round type talent. But once you get past about the top 55 picks, Matt, as a quarterback, you're not being drafted to start. Just what it is. Look at the NFL right now. All first round picks. It's Jalen Hurts, and then what? Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Like those are Purdy and Prescott. Kirk Cousins, like complete outliers. Cousins not even starting anymore. They got a first round pick to start for him. Complete outliers. You're not brought in to start. You might start for circumstances at some point. And I think once Sanders was out of the range of the draft of where he was a bona fide starter being drafted by a team, I think teams just didn't want to deal with everything else, right? And we heard stories, and we actually got a name. Todd McShay used the name Brian Dable. He put a name to a story. The Giants head coach, Brian Dable, he he gave Sanders basically homework. And look, in these meetings, they will tell the player, hey, like here's our playbook. Like sort of come prepared or like do some studying. It's even, it's the draft day scene where they put $1 at the back of the playbook for everyone to go through the playbook. And Bo Callahan didn't give the dollar back or didn't talk about the dollar. It's the same concept, right? Like teams want you to come prepared, and Sanders did not come prepared at all. And his people overplayed their hand. They thought they had, a straight flush, and they had two pair. And they played it like they were invincible to the process. And the NFL said, sorry, man, you didn't play this right. You didn't take interviews seriously. You didn't take the process seriously. You never really gave us athletic testing. Like your pro day was okay, but not great. Your film, well, many things I like about your film is not perfect. And so, Matt, I think all of those things are the reasons why A, he was too high, and B, why he fell.
I think you're right. I think you're dead on. I mean, the, you mentioned your experience. Like you were a seventh round pick, but you outperformed your draft position, and that's the thing I think that's being lost in all this is like Shedeur actually he did go to the team that we all probably wanted him to go to. Like there is a world where he could be the starter for the Browns this season. Like maybe even week one. It's not likely, but it's possible that at some point he will get a chance to start for them. And, clearly, I thought it was interesting because there was a lot of allegations about collusion or blackballing or whatever. It's pretty clear to me that the owner made the pick for this. right? Like
Yeah.
when you saw the reaction from the Browns staff when they made the pick and they had already picked Dylan Gabriel, like they weren't thrilled, but it was the owner said like, "Hey, we talked about him at number two. Like, why don't we take him now?" And I mean, that's not official, but you have to assume that. So I think, look, clearly whatever happened off the field had some impact, but I think the assessment was guided by
Yeah.
where he is on the field. And then I think, there's something I forget which coach it was. I think it was Mike Tomlin sometime around this time last year was talking about how being a coach, like you should want to coach people, right? Like it's not always fun to get the guy who's a finished product, doesn't really need the coaching or can coach others. Like you should want, the maybe the problem, the
Yeah.
headache, the challenge. And I think a lot of coaches feel that way and guys who
Yeah.
develop players, but I do think that there's maybe some wondering of what if he'll be able to receive coaching or not.
No, well,
And that's
certainly,
probably fair, but I think it's out there.
again, no, we're repeating things we've heard. I have not been told this by
Right.
anyone. But you're right about people are concerned that he's only played for his dad and what happens when you play for someone else. You mentioned the people alleging collusion, all these things. Um, this is also, again, why it's hard to talk about Shedeur Sanders because, um, so going back to the first year there at Colorado, they start 3-0, if you remember. And the media hype was so over the top for Colorado that it turned a lot of people off and made people dislike the Sanders family for no real reason. Like disliking them because they're getting too much attention to me feels like a silly way to dislike them. But a lot of people just started hating, for lack of a better term, on Sanders because of the media was making it seem like they were winning the Super Bowl in college football. There was a tweet that came out, I remember after week 3, that was who would win between 2019 LSU, remember the Joe Burrow team, or
And one
2023
gorilla.
Colorado. Yeah, one gorilla and 2023 Colorado.
Right.
The next week they lost to Oregon 42-6 in a game that wasn't even that close.
Right.
Okay. And so a lot of people, I think, just got like imagine Mel Kiper talking about Sanders the way he did this week, but that happened for like weeks at a time. So people got turned off of Colorado that it was hard to even give. I gave him credit last season, but people like last year they were actually legitimately deserving of credit. They did a great job last season, unbelievable job. But the people that are saying that it's collusion, those are the same people that turned everyone off 2 years ago by saying that this was the greatest thing they've ever seen. In the same year, Northwestern won 7 games after winning one game. Colorado won 4. Like it's sort of that. So it's the same people that turned people off 2 years ago. The same people saying collusion. Look, Matt, you know this. I know this. We're NFL fans. I've said this before. The NFL only cares about the integrity of the game. Does not care about the people playing in the game. There's a player drafted by the Ravens with 2 sexual assault allegations. He's drafted in the middle second round. The Browns, who drafted Shedeur Sanders, have a quarterback on their roster, Matt, who 35 women have accused him of sexual assault, like sexual misconduct, all those things. Like the NFL does not care. If you can play, you will get drafted high, you will get paid in the NFL. So the idea that the NFL owners said just colluded with everyone's like Sanders is actually really this good, but let's not sign him because he is arrogant, whatever term you want to use, or we don't like his personality. That's not the way the league works.
Yeah, and like the league wouldn't want more Deion Sanders. Like, of course they would. It's great for business, like you said.
So all those things I think came into play here. Now, as far as will he play or not, I'll tell you what. Look, Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, I think, fight for the starting job. The loser of that gets cut essentially, and then Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders fight for the number one primary backup job. The issue is that there's just not a lot of reps to go around. Like that's the problem. There's just not a lot of reps. Um, you have 10 off-season workouts or OTAs, and you got a training camp. Like I just there's just not a lot to really um to reps. There's not a lot of reps on that. So I don't know when he gets to play, I liked him in this offense. I like him in this offense, but the Gabriel pick really sort of threw me off because Gabriel's very clearly drafted to be a backup. So Shedeur drafted to be the starter in the fifth round. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't think that was the plan, like I said, but you're right. And that's interesting, your point about one of the vets will get cut. I'll say this too. I I don't know. I think he has a chance. We'll see. And I don't know. I think he ended up being put in a decent situation, but crazy story. It's sort of a shame. I feel bad for him, honestly. Like I feel like he became the story of this whole draft, and you know, no time has been spent talking about Cam Ward. I'm not the first to bring that up, but like even the rest of the first round, I'm looking back and I like had to look through it to prepare for this show. Like, what else happened in this draft? Like, it became this story about
Yeah,
Shedeur and his drop, and I'm rooting for him. I think that like you can get over, being a little bit cocky or like, he's
yeah,
too much of a celebrity. Like, we'll see. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the discourse around Caleb Williams last year. And that ended up maybe having some validity to it. Like there's this, so you said last year he was like the first Gen Z quarterback to be picked. And I found that to be pretty interesting, um, in just sort of like how he presented himself. But this might be a little bit of that too. It's just like this is a different guy. He was doing a Twitch stream for a few days. Like, maybe he'll end up succeeding and being a leader. And maybe some crotchety owners and coaches and GMs maybe don't understand that yet. We'll see.
I,
Um,
I'm looking forward to following it. Obviously,
Me too.
I don't think
Rooting
like
for
we
him.
to the point we made, like no one is rooting against him here. At least I don't root against anyone. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, I just don't care enough to root against anybody. Like I don't know who has time in their life to root against anyone. I barely have time to root for myself in my life. Like, it seems silly to me that people hate on him so much. But some of the takes, oh buddy,
Yeah.
they
They
are
are out there.
they're just it's why people have trouble with, I think, the coverage of the family, because there's just very clearly people out there that are just not using much logic and just saying things like again, the NFL, man, it tells you what they feel about you, whether you like it or not. And that's what last night was, or whatever, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. By the way, I saw a bet on Friday morning. I'm in New York City, walking to get a bagel on Friday morning, and I saw a wager on a faraway website that had Sanders to not be picked in the second round plus 10,000, so 100 to 1. They limited me to one whole dollar, Matt. I got $1 down on it. So I made $100 on that. That was thank you. Thank you, offshore website.
That was great. I got multiple texts from people, like one of my fantasy leagues, somebody sent that tweet, not knowing that some super supportive friend, not knowing that we even know each other or that, let alone that I'm co-hosting your show with you. But it sort of got some buzz out there of like, wow, this is a really sharp move by old Jeff Schwartz.
I
So
made, yeah,
congrats on the big pop there.
I think I tried to put down $25 on it,
Yeah.
and I got
Oh
limited to
man.
one. So
Yeah, you could retire if you hit that one.
I could.
Uh, well,
Any other thoughts on the
no,
draft?
I think I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the draft as a whole. Yeah, how do you want to do this? Some
I,
favorites, some
I,
favorite
I,
picks.
I mean, I don't know if I have like favorite picks per se, but I just think that this draft was unique because there weren't a lot of players that I think teams um, felt like they had to draft per se, right? Like it just sort of, you got to a point. The Cowboys at 12 were like, we like the guard. We're taking Booker.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was
one of those
interesting.
drafts where, and Dallas, by the way, has drafted multiple like Hall of Fame offensive linemen in the first round. They're like the one team I trust to always draft well.
Hmm.
At that position, I should say. So yeah, I don't really, again, I don't know if I have, it was a pretty boring draft from that perspective. Um, I thought the Eagles and Chiefs did well. I mean, the Panthers did well. I thought the Browns, if you reorder their draft, it's funny if you
Yeah, it
like
looks
if
great.
yeah, it looks great if you reorder it. Just the way they drafted,
Just
the
swap
order they
Sanders and
did.
Gabriel. Yeah, the
Yeah,
rest of
and
their draft looks
yeah,
really good.
and they got the extra draft pick
Yeah,
from the Jaguars. I didn't like that trade. I didn't like the The
Well,
Falcons trade the Jaguars trade. Just think about this, Matt. Next year, okay, let's say Trevor Lawrence has a tough season. They don't have a first round pick to get a quarterback.
yeah, that's a pretty interesting situation they're in. But they're not going to be able to do that anyway because they extended him and they brought in the coach who probably is all sold on him. I think, Atlanta's maybe a little more interesting with Penix. Like he's had the injury situation. Cousins still on the team. You could read into that a lot of ways, but they potentially might be looking for a quarterback next year too. I hope not. Why don't I just fire some questions at you
Okay.
because um, I guess we sort of touched on the Travis Hunter thing. Interesting play. I don't know if Jacksonville's maybe the right spot for him, but what about the Panthers? They ended up taking McMillan at number 8. I think that was the first like really big surprise of the draft. What do you think of that play for them and maybe the rest of their crew?
I like what they did. Look, I think again, like I think they wanted to go defense early in that draft, but they look at what they were at and like this is maybe the best wide receiver on the board. But let's just go ahead and take him. I mean, like that feels okay to do. And again, I mean, this was a draft where it everyone would it's like ice cream, buddy. We all have our favorite flavors of ice cream, and it felt like the draft where there once you got past the premium players there wasn't a lot of players or situations like that I think teams did poorly on because it's all how they sort of looked at where they were with the draft and the picks they
Yeah.
had.
I liked it. I mean, it's sort of like if you're and then they ended up drafting 2 edge rushers with their next 2 picks, Scourton and Princely. I loved what they did. And it's like if you get the best receiver in the draft, like if you like him, trust it. Like I thought that was a really nice pick. Um, what did you think of the Giants and how they played the first round? They end up obviously getting Carter. They're getting a lot of credit for Carter and then coming back in for Jackson Dart. I have a specific Dart follow-up, but I mean, I sat him going ninth to the Saints in our mock draft. Heard some buzz that he was going to fly up some boards, but I'm just curious, like what you watched him more in college. Like, how did you think the Giants played that?
Oh, we'll clap in a second. Um, I so I said this on TV when I was with Nick. It was a lot of fun with being that crew. That's a fun group to be with. I was prepared for some Luca and Laker takes, but they didn't take me up on the
Oh,
basketball offer there.
they're gonna have a shelf life, one more game, so get them ready.
Dude, as a Lakers fan, quickly, I'll give you one basketball take. If you have Luca and LeBron, you should score more than 19 points in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's a
In
good take.
in the fourth quarter, I should say, of a playoff game, a must-win game. Like the reason you have both of them is so you don't blow a 7 point lead with 3 minutes left.
Yeah, it's
Like
not
that's
good.
the point of them of having those guys. Even when they played those guys the entire second half, I mean, Denver did the same thing and barely survived against the Clippers. But they were up 20 points. Denver was like that was the goal: get up big and just sort of try to finish up. And the Lakers were right on path and then just didn't do it again. Oh, this team frustrates me. But they're many pieces away. I don't know what we're talking about anymore. Which team we're talking about?
Yeah, I kind of forgot. Oh, the Giants.
Giants. Okay. So uh, you want to feel, at least I do, something when you draft a quarterback that high. And the Giants traded that pick, and we all knew it was for Jackson Dart. They drafted on that, and I felt nothing inside. I just was like, oh, my first thought was, oh, they'll be back here in 3 years,
Yeah.
needing a quarterback. That's probably not the thought you want to have.
Nope, probably not.
Yeah. And could I be wrong? Yeah, absolutely. I've never been wrong before, but I'm willing to be wrong this time. But I just think that you're supposed to say, you know, back me up on that. But I do think that it's just it's you get first round pick next season. It's a lot, man. And they're not going to play
Yeah.
Dart this season, and he needs room for growth and whatnot. So I guess trying to save your job. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't love it.
I thought the whole situation was interesting. First of all, yes, they got the second quarterback in the class, but you're not usually finding a guy who's going to save your franchise like in the 20s. It doesn't happen that often. Like there's the odd Lamar Jackson, but there's not like usually it's people that other teams want. And he got past the Steelers. Like he got all the way down through the teens. Like maybe there was a thought maybe the Rams would have taken him so that they could groom him behind Stafford. I didn't see that. They ended up trading out of the rounds for the Falcons anyway. But uh, curious pick. I also thought, the Abdul Carter thing, they're getting a lot of love for that. I get it. Um, One of the themes that I sort of saw in this draft was like teams were not afraid to draft their strengths, like to add to what they already have. Like Tampa was a team that did that. Giants, obviously. Who was the team right after Tampa that drafted uh,
Denver.
Denver, right, where they draft a corner.
I thought it was a good draft pick by them.
It was interesting because it's like, well, what's the one thing Denver doesn't need? It's like, well, they probably don't need a corner, and it's like, okay, well, they took a corner. Now they should have like the best 1-2 cornerback duo in the league. They just got strength on strength, and the Giants, like, I will say, like, nobody's going to look forward to playing the Giants. Like, they're going to have a really tough defensive line to deal with. Like, that could end up winning them a few games sort of by accident, even if their offense is terrible. But I think you're right. I think going up big for Dart when they honestly like probably could have gotten him at the first pick of the second rounds. Like I'm not really sure who was going to jump back in there and take him. But I guess if you love your guy, you got to get your guy. So credit to them for that, I guess.
Yeah, and again, I did a article for Fox Sports grading the draft, and I did it like in my hotel room at like 11:45 p.m. Eastern as the draft was ending, and it's like I don't even know how you give more than like I mean it's like worse than like a B minus on draft night. Like you don't know how these guys are going to be until they actually play.
Of course,
You're just grading process, and so um, I think I gave your Commanders an A plus though. I don't even forget who they drafted. Oh, Connerly, yeah, of course, A plus.
Connerly, yeah,
Drafting
interesting.
Oregon offensive lineman, yeah, I guess gave him an A plus for that.
Yeah, that's a homer pick
Just
for us.
straight bias. But I was like, okay, like the Commanders are interesting, right? Like I don't think they drafted positions they needed, like, but I mean, I don't know. What do you feel about the Commanders?
Yeah, I mean, they sort of fall into those other teams that kind of towards the back half of the round that seem to know what they're doing. And they took they took offensive line and corner with their top two, and it's like they didn't really need an offensive lineman, but by doing so, they upgraded like they can move people around. So they kind of solve multiple problems. The other thing that's interesting with that what they did was their big offseason acquisitions were Tunsil, Lattimore from last year, and
Yeah,
Samuel, and their top three picks were tackle, corner, and receiver. So they kind of drafted their replacements maybe.
yeah.
But I do think like you watch the Chiefs, you watch the Ravens, you watch the
The
Bills,
Chiefs did well.
the Eagles, like
Yeah,
they just like take the best guy there and they figure it out. And I've never been on
yeah,
a fan of a team that's been able to do that. And you look at a team like the Giants where it's like, okay, you need a quarterback. It's worth the swing. You should take the risk if you believe in the quarterback.
yeah.
But you do sort of
So
see these teams every year kind of fall into that same pattern of like, well, we need this.
yeah. So
But
you made the point that's I want to reiterate because I don't want to pass it over. So it's a good point you made. It's something I was going to bring up as we end here. Um, so teams spend months putting together the big board, right? Their own big board where they rank all the players 1 through 300. And you've often found the best teams are drafting in the first round, of course, because they're playoff teams, but they just draft the highest player on their board every time.
yep,
And I'm not saying Connerly was the best player, but it seems very clear he was pretty high up there because they need other players and they took him instead.
yeah,
And you look at like the Chiefs. I could have used a D tackle, but there really wasn't anyone available. The Eagles took a off the ball linebacker. Like they don't
right.
need that
Yeah, they
per
found
se.
one and just paid one.
Yeah,
But
I mean, they let I think the other one walked. But like you just if you take enough good football players, you figure it out. And it's also sh shocking how often you draft a player who's not supposed to play, and then their person in front of them gets hurt.
right,
And all of a sudden, the player that you didn't that you need as a fan base is playing for you week 3.
right,
And like
exactly.
so I like just and look, we don't Washington strategy so far. They've been great in year one. There's no reason to doubt the way they built their roster so far.
Right. That's a great point. You just can't have too many absolute studs. And
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like, I mean, we had a little bit of off-air discussion. We don't need to go into Commander's tackle talk, but like, seems like Kingsbury really wanted him. So, like, that's cool. I have a few teams I thought gave me some real questions. I'm going to give you
Okay.
five, and then we'll do them quick.
Okay.
Uh, Saints. They take Banks, who like, okay, sure, sounds good, but then they go with Shuck or whatever in round two. Um, Probably the most insane. You tweeted a tweet from Oregon in 2019 when he was the backup for Justin Herbert, and I was like, 2019? Like that's just absolutely insane. To me, I just have no idea what they're doing.
I'm pretty sure that was his second year at Oregon too.
Right. I
I
think
mean,
it
I
was
think
too.
he got to Oregon in 2018.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, again, does drafting a 26-year-old quarterback do you get the tingles inside? Does that make you feel good, Saints fans? Feels like you just waste a second round pick.
correct. But God bless. How about the Steelers, who pass on Dart, pass on Shuck, pass on the whole quarterback class? The
Yeah.
Steelers still don't have a quarterback. It's
Yeah.
May. What are we doing?
So our pal Dave Damashek put out a great video today on
I
this.
saw
Go to
that.
yeah,
Yes.
like basically, and he's a huge Steel. He's in a room full of Steelers stuff, like the biggest Steelers home you're ever going to find, and they're openly mocking the franchise because they don't have a quarterback right now. That's why I thought they draft Sanders. I'm still surprised they just didn't take him. There must have been so many red flags, dude. Um, we're gonna get that athletic article in like 2 days
Yeah.
from someone, or Seth Wickersham's going to run down, 22 sources and put out a great piece in a month on ESPN.com, right? Like, something's going to come out about how this process went.
Yeah. Well,
I Go ahead.
if they land on Aaron Rodgers and pass on Shedeur Sanders, I have some questions about the Steelers process. Let me just put it
I
that way.
Are they? We're going under again this year, right?
I didn't last year and they went over, and this year I am decidedly on the under.
You
Um,
know, By the way, okay, so it's about to be May, June, July. We're like Matt. August is soon when we start doing our preview shows, buddy.
it
We're we're
it's
we're
it's
we're,
happening soon.
we're getting there before you know it, man. Oh, I cannot wait.
I
Oh,
can't either.
football season is just it's the best. So yeah, and we need people to be on board. If you want to be on board, let us know.
Yes, we would love that. More quick questions,
Yes.
and I'll cut a few here. Baltimore. Suddenly, you mentioned, is it Mike Green is his first name?
Yeah, Mike Green. Yeah.
So now on their roster, they have this Justin Tucker thing hanging over them. They draft Mike Green. Uh, just felt like they put themselves in a bit of a weird bullseye that could have completely been avoided. Like everyone loved the
Yeah.
Starks pick, but I think people just hear like, oh, the Ravens drafted a safety from Georgia, like oh, he's going to the Hall of Fame. We'll see. But then they take this guy Green in the second round. Just felt a little bit odd to me. Like a team that doesn't need to do that, but I guess how they felt about him checks out. I'm just curious what you thought of that.
Look, Mike Green was supposed to be a top 15 pick, and they got him at like 55 or something, right?
Yeah,
So, I get why they did that. And again, he's been accused of two sexual assaults. Again, I actually don't
two
know.
different colleges.
I don't know where the process is in those accusations. Obviously, the Ravens feel comfortable enough to to make that draft pick. Um, and then they had to draft a kicker in the second round too. So interesting. I mean,
Very interesting.
in the sixth round, I should say.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. Nor it says no formal charges were filed and Green has done any wrongdoing. He voluntarily brought up the allegation at the NFL scouting combine in February. He was not made available to reporters Friday night. Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta. I would say that we investigated the situation very thoroughly. I think we have the best scouts in the NFL. We've got great scouts that go into Virginia. They go to Marshall. So I think he feels fine with it.
it's interesting. Uh, yeah, I mean those were some of my questions. I thought for the most part this is not a draft that's going to shape the history of the NFL all that much.
No,
I thought Chiefs did a good job. Patriots,
Patriots are
the
good. Yeah,
Seahawks. Loved the Titans. I thought they did well. But yeah, fun draft. I don't know. I'm sad it's over and we now we're dead for a little while.
We got to
But
do. Well, we're not. Well, this podcast is not going to be dead. It's up to you. I'll keep going. We'll
no,
find
man,
stuff.
we'll take some breaks, but we'll keep going.
We'll find
Especially
stuff to
when the
do.
Commanders sign Von Miller in a few days, and I start to freak out because they still don't have an edge rusher, and they're going to sign somebody. We're going to need to talk about that.
Is there a trade possibility?
I don't know who it would be, but they don't have any picks, but maybe.
All right, buddy. Anything else?
I think we covered it. Should we
I,
hit on that? We got all the meat off the bone in the gorilla conversation, I think.
yeah.
Uh, I don't think time allows for our cuck share discussion today.
Probably not.
Okay, we'll get it next time.
We're gonna do a review of hotel chairs at some point this summer when there's nothing to do. We're just gonna have Sam put together a collage of chairs and rate them,
Yeah,
from like 1 to 10 in different categories.
right. But the thing that I think we just got to drill down on is we got to define this. Like, not every it's a square rectangle situation where like not every chair in a hotel is a true chair for viewing. It's sometimes more just like there for, maybe
Yeah,
another look in your Zoom call. Like there are some chairs that are logical in these hotel rooms, but we can save that for another show.
yeah. So, all right, everyone, we're back next week after the Commanders sign Von Miller. But I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope I explained that Sanders thing well. Have
Yep.
a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.